News when you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Amy Morris. And there's your closing bell for this Tuesday on Wall Street, where stocks climbed as oil fell on word that the U.S. and Iran are looking to arrange a second round of peace talks in the coming days, with Tehran considering a pause in shipments through the Strait of Hormuz to help ease the path toward an agreement. We do bring you the closing numbers each day here at Bloomberg. The S&P 500 gained 81 points, NASDAQ gained nearly 2%, 455 points, and the Dow jumped 318 points. That's about 0.6%. The 10-year Treasury yield at 4.24% and the 2-year yield at 3.74%. Checking oil now. WTI crude oil down 7%, around $92 a barrel. Brent crude is around $95 a barrel, down about 4%. And we'll get to the latest from Iran, but first, California Democrat Eric Swalwell and Texas Republican Tony Gonzales have officially resigned their congressional seats amid allegations of sexual misconduct. Swalwell's resignation took effect immediately. Gonzales's took effect at the end of the day. The resignations come after fellow lawmakers called for their resignations or expulsions, with investigations into those allegations ongoing. Now, the U.S. says 6 merchant vessels complied with instructions to turn around and re-enter an Iranian port during the first day of its blockade. Central Command says no vessels have made it through the blockade, which is made up of more than a dozen warships and 10,000 service personnel. Israeli and Lebanese officials have concluded more than 2 hours of direct talks in Washington. Israel's ambassador says the parties will release a joint statement. Secretary of State Marco Rubio downplayed expectations, saying at the start of the talks that this is a process, not an event. Their face-to-face meeting was notable because Israel and Lebanon do not have diplomatic relations. This was the first direct talks between the two countries in more than 30 years. Former Senator Joe Manchin says Congress must get involved in Iran war policy, either by law, if the war goes on for 60 days, or when the bill comes due.
The power of the purse is still in the House. We saw what the Afghanistan-Iraq war did to us, accumulating more debt. And now we're at 39, pushing $40 trillion. A civilized country cannot survive that, because sooner or later it's going to be such a burden on the citizens that they'll reject what's going on. And when that happens, you just get total dysfunction.
Hear our entire interview with former Senator Joe Manchin on the Bloomberg Talks podcast. And Europe is reportedly working on a post-war plan that could free up the Hormuz Strait. The Wall Street Journal reports it would include a broad coalition of countries to help with shipping, mine clearing, and other military vessels. But the plan would only come after the war, and it would exclude one country in particular, the U.S. The goal of the European plan is to give shipping companies confidence to use the strait after the fighting is over, which officials say could be some time away. The International Monetary Fund downgraded its growth projection for the year because of the oil shock triggered by the war. IMF chief economist Pierre-Olivier Gourinchas says the damage won't last if the conflict can be resolved soon.
The closing of the Strait of Hormuz and serious damage to critical energy facilities in the Middle East raise the prospect of a major energy crisis should a durable solution not be found soon.
Gourinchas spoke in Washington, D.C. during the IMF spring meetings. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent suggested IMF should be leading by example and focusing more on global imbalances.
Because I can tell you, like this slow motion buildup of global imbalances after a lack of sustainable growth is the biggest risk. The world cannot take a China with $1 trillion trade surplus.
Bessent spoke at an Institute of International Finance event in Washington. European Central Bank President Christine Lagarde says higher energy costs have pushed the Eurozone away from the ECB's base case outlook. She spoke to Bloomberg's Francine Lacroix in Washington for the World Bank IMF meetings.
It's the Strait of Hormuz not being open for shipping and transportation, because you have 20% of gas and oil going through that, as well as the like of ingredients necessary for fertilizers, ingredients necessary for microchips.
Catch that full conversation with ECB President Christine Lagarde on the Bloomberg Video Hub at Bloomberg.com/videos. Citadel founder and CEO Ken Griffin addressed the classic energy price shock.
This really is a very, very treacherous moment for the world economy.
Citadel CEO Ken Griffin at the Semaphore World Economy 2026 Summit. Amazon has agreed to acquire satellite operator Globalstar in a roughly $11.6 billion deal to expand the services of its satellite system. The deal is expected to close in 2027, and Amazon will enter the direct-to-device market in 2028, with Apple's emergency messaging service transitioning to Amazon Leo, the company's broadband satellite network. Amazon gained about 4% in regular trading. Globalstar jumped 10% in the regular session. That's news when you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Amy Morris, and this is Bloomberg.